Good morning. It's MTK on the MIC for Monday, December 25. I hope you're well where you are. It's nice and cool here today. That's kind of an unusual thing because it seems like it gets warmer during the day and very cool at night, almost like in the desert. In desert conditions, you see that, right? And this is becoming more and more common in more places all over the world as we endure climate change and experience what is coming with the warming of our planet during this time period, the warming of our oceans, carbonification, right? The carbonification of the ocean. As the seas get warmer, there's going to be a lot of problems that result from this, including flooding of our low-lying and coastal areas, including a possible concatenation of extinctions. That's something that's very frightening, but it's a very real possibility. As the oceans warm, species will die off and other species will get leverage, and this could easily result in extinctions because of the food chain being profoundly interrupted by this slow warmth of the ocean. We don't know exactly what the effects will be. There are a lot of scientists who are speculating about it, but if we keep denying it, that's our biggest problem. The kind of, I don't want to say capitalist, but that's the reality. The free marketization of our society has made it possible to buy off people's care. People don't care. Nobody cares. Almost everywhere I go nowadays, I separate my garbage because, I'm from California. That's what we do. And, even here where I am now, my parents did it, even though none of their neighbors did. There were no bins here where I am now. And yet we separated, and we created a compost in the backyard. And much of the planet is doing this, and we all ought to be. It is not that difficult. The problem is that the free marketization of our society has bought off people and just made them think that it doesn't matter. Screw it. We're all going down. Get your kicks before the shithouse goes up in flames, is what Morrison said. No, that's not what's going on here. Some will be alive, maybe you, and maybe your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. So if they are, we have to start thinking about how to make it okay for them, not to be thinking about apocalyptic visions of it all blowing up. That's insane. How do you get an apocalypse? By constantly repeating that there's going to be an apocalypse. And that's what's been going on in popular culture in the West. The spectacular films that are made about the total destruction of places, whole buildings and cityscapes coming down as if, that's just a normal thing to happen. And this impression of a facile world that's just, it's Hollywood. That's what it really is. And it's also insane. There's nothing in the real world like the things that are projected to you in your video games and in the films that you're watching. The real world is real, and it's a lot better place than you are being shown. The free marketization of our society has made fearmongers out of the capitalists. They gain by you being afraid. They gain by you being uneducated. They gain by holding you in a state. That state is one that makes you constantly want to buy things, right? That's the state that the new economy is engaged in India, I guarantee you. People are just spending money like crazy. The volume in India is amazing right now. And all of the free marketization that we learned about from the Western models are playing out in so many different ways in the internal economy of a free country like India, the largest democracy in the world. It kind of fascinates me. But also, I have an access that's different from most people. And now that access is shrinking. Many times when I would go to India when I was younger and I would see my cousins, I would get very sad inside and cry even sometimes. And I remember one of my cousins asking me, I'm not going to say her name here, but, well, why not? Manika asking me, what's wrong, And I was just like, I can't explain it to you. And I remember standing there looking at her. It was at Hari's wedding, and Tara, when I met Tara, which is crazy. Like being on the other side of the planet, I don't even get to see my cousins' girlfriends or wives or anybody, and I show up for some wedding or some funeral. This transmigration that we experienced, this was not a refugee transmigration. This was a choice, and the United States wanted us. They wanted my parents for their abilities as educators, and that's why we were here. We weren't here as refugees from someplace. And in fact, to this day, I keep thinking there must be some country that wants me, right? There must be some place in the world that wants me. I'm telling you, I'm worth it. I can teach, I can make art, I can do all kinds of things. But I just can't keep lying. I can't keep maintaining false pretensions. That's what the United States is. Everything about it, the longer I've spent here, the more it feels like total bullshit. The promises it makes, like the First Amendment, which is so important, the most critical thing. I mean, they were the beginning of a lot of that for the planet. We could agree about that, the revolution, etc. But it wasn't real. It was just for white slave-owning men. And so we look at it through a lens as though that's what freed everybody and created the Republican revolutions. I mean, the idea that people would just suddenly start throwing off their monarchs and so on. That's kind of insane. It's not true. And then the more you scratch at it, the more you realize it's, very little of it's true. The land grab was a land grab. The attempted genocide was an attempt at genociding the people who were already living here for thousands of years, who had complex structures. The Constitution was born out of a constitution that they already had, the native peoples, the Algonquin. The more you dig into U.S. history, the less it's like what is projected by both the nation now, especially since 9/11, the jingoistic message sent out to the world, or either of the parties now, or from what I'm starting to understand, in schools. They don't want to teach in schools the truth about the Native Americans here. They don't want to teach in schools the truth about slavery here. They want to change the narrative into one in which they're consistently kept on top. That, my friends, is a kind of really frightening racism, deep and profound. And this country is in trouble because it thinks it can just keep going on like that, and it can't. There are so many problems. I've hinted at a few of them in my work. You can listen to the stuff, or you can invite me to come speak to you. I'd love to give some lectures next year rather, or be on the radio somewhere. I need an agent. If anybody wants to give me an agent that can get me on the air someplace, I need to start looking for that again. I'm done dealing with people dying. My father died. My sister died. My mother doesn't care. She's too busy traveling the world with her bionic knees to care. And I need to get on the air somehow next year. It doesn't matter where I am. I've just found out, look, I'm carrying a microphone around with me. I'm now MTK on the MIC, totally mobile. I can report from anywhere on the planet. That is something I wanted since I was a little kid. I totally used to make a little newspaper in the neighborhood and charge 5 cents. I'd use an AB Dick copier. I used to take my typewriter and write stories about, things that happened in our neighborhood. I've been a journalist at heart for 50 plus years. It's something that I care about, observing the world, thinking I perceive of truth, and expressing it to others. And instead, I've been reduced to a joke. In our society, people think the things I think are outrageous. I don't know what to do about that. Oh, here's an idea. Maybe I should just make a podcast and shout down a hole. That's what this microphone is, right? It's a big hole in the ground, and I'm standing at the edge of it, and I'm just shouting my truths into it. A coup d'etat happened on November 22nd of 1963. The men in charge then took over the government. They then ran it, and their fingerprints are on many things that exist even to this day. And there are so many other problems. Pearl Harbor? No, they knew, man. They knew it was going to be attacked. There could have been warnings. They needed to get into the war in Europe, and this was the way to do it. Over and over again, you can see the corruption in the United States, and we need to teach the truth. We've got to start teaching the truth, folks. I don't know how else to say it. MTK shouting down the hole.